like the list just goes on and on and on. And then when you finally understand how everything works, you understand that it's all from the same thing. We all have hyperinsulinemia, and
Mm.
it's probably like 90% of us. This just really, if you're pre-diabetic, you're diabetic. You're almost there.
Dawn, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I guess the short version is keto was the beginning. It was kind of like the gateway, if you want, for lack of a better word. And I just find that once you've been doing it for a while, it just seems to be a natural progression. It doesn't really seem like it's that difficult once you do it. Um, a lot of times, I guess it's just sheer laziness. You're like, do I really need the broccoli? Do I really need asparagus on the plate? Because after a while, you know, I knew about Atkins 30 years ago, which is just crazy. Everybody kind of heard about Atkins, but sometimes we're just not ready when we hear about it, which is a shame because that's 30 years, but it is what it is. But for me, I guess how it all began was August of 2018. I said to myself, I'm bored reading fiction books. I'm just going to start reading science books and nonfiction because I really like science. And I went to the library and this book was on display, and it was called The Big Fat Surprise, by Nina Teicholz. I don't know if you've heard of her. And it was, to me, just the most astonishing book. I couldn't believe how fantastic it was. I have several copies and I give them away because I think everybody needs to know just how important butter, beef, bacon, and eggs, and all these wonderful things are for the human person. So it just kind of went from there. It kind of ignited a fire in me to just keep learning. Then I went to Wheat Belly with Dr. William Davis. That was a wonderful book. Gary Taubes, I love Gary Taubes. The Case Against Sugar was such a fantastic book. So it just kind of it snowballed from there to reading everything that Dr. Jason Fung has put out. To me, he's one of my Canadian heroes. I love the man. Um, just a lot of different people. Amber O'Hearn, she's been in the carnivore world. So I was getting a lot of information from a lot of different people. It wasn't just, a couple of people. But the thing that really made the difference for me was actually understanding how the process worked, why keto worked. I have been, I guess I've been looking my whole life for the actual truth of how things work. And it's really hard to find sometimes, especially you look at the Canada's Food Guide, which is the same as, the food pyramid for the States. And I'm sure it's the same in Australia and everywhere else around the world. They just kind of feed you with a bunch of lies. And so, I was even a vegetarian for a year thinking that that was the way to better health because I was always looking for the way to getting the best health. And, lo and behold, it actually was Atkins all that time. But like I said, when I read that book in, the 90s, I was doing, remember those stepper-sizers things that you would do exercise with? Susan Powter, Stop the Insanity. And, she was saying fat makes you fat. And so, oh my gosh, we can't eat fat. And, Dean Ornish was talking about that and the Pritikin diet. So there was just a bunch of crap going around with, so how does the normal person get to the truth? And that's the crux of the thing. So when Dr. Jason Fung really explained how and why keto worked, the light bulb went on in my head. And that was what made the difference. And so that was when after figuring out, and when you can actually explain to somebody in like a paragraph why it works, you actually understand it. So I'm a huge advocate for it. I just said to my husband, look, I think we got to do this. Let's just go keto. Let's just go all in. I can do anything for 100 days. That was kind of my motto because I really didn't know where I was going to start with it. I just knew that I had to start. And so he said, sure, let's do it. And so we just started, and we did it for 100 days. And then it was my birthday after that 100 days, and I had cheesecake, several pieces. And then I got back on and did it for another 100 days. And that's kind of what I just kept doing. So that kind of was my introduction to starting keto, and then kind of just going more into the carnivore side of it, really.
So what kind of timeline are we talking about here? So this was around the end of 2018 when you started keto originally?
Yep, that's right.
Mm.
That's pretty much how long I've been doing. I mean, you know, I am not faithful 100%. I'd be lying if I said I was. I admire people like you and Sean Baker and Jordan Peterson. You know, they never cheat. I admire that. That's a huge thing sometimes for me. So um, yeah, that's. However, sometimes you can know all of the right things and still have a hard time doing the right things all of the time, 100% of the time. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up for that. I know, I'm guilty of that myself. But yeah, I guess, my journey in a lot of ways as well started with, I don't know if you've ever read this book called Still Alice. It was kind of a heartbreaking book. It was about this woman wrote it about her mother's early onset dementia. And that was part of the impetus for the reason why I wanted to see what is the cause of Alzheimer's and what are all these different things. How are they all related? And because I always joke that, if I had dementia, I'd really like to be able to drink that cup of hemlock before it's too late, but by the time you drink it, you've forgotten why it's there. You're too far gone. But, um, you know, I work in a hospital, and when you work in the lab and you're taking blood from people all day long, you know, everything is related, and it's all coming back to hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance, or, whatever you want to call it. And it's really quite sad because you're seeing young people that can't have children. You're seeing people who have chronic kidney disease at a very young age now. And you know darn well that that's going towards transplant for some of these people. For some of these people, it's amputations. I've seen so many of them. It's ridiculous. It breaks my heart. Um, when you look at people, it's the gout, it's the rheumatoid arthritis, and I guess I was so militant when I first started, Dave. I guess it was like a religion for me. And my boss, I would be called into the office. I've been called into the office a number of times because I keep telling people that maybe they should change their diet, and maybe they should go keto, and maybe they should go carnivore. And I did that one day, and it was my boss's her husband that I was telling this to one day. And I got called in to tell people to stop talking about it, that I wasn't allowed to tell people about this. But how can you not tell people about this when clearly, I don't think a lot of people really care anymore, Dave. You know, I a lot of times I don't tell a lot of people about it anymore because it's just not welcome. People want to just do what they want to do, and then just do whatever, like give me the insulin, I'll just do whatever. Because they don't want to give up their bread, and they don't want to, and they've told me that, people with Parkinson's and, my age, and they have a walker for crying out loud. And, you could change all of this. You really could. Oh, well, I don't want to give up my bread. And I thought, what the hell? That is just not worth it. And I don't know. It's when you see what they're feeding the people in the hospital, you just can't believe it. You really can't believe it. And it's okay, Mr. Johnson, just have this. And everything is just carbs. There's no real protein of any kind. It's just all day sugar, sugar, sugar. in all of its unglorious forms. So yeah, it's pretty hard for me to shut my mouth. Um, especially when it can make a
Yeah.
huge difference in people's lives if they would just change.
Right.
You
It
know?
it must be so hard to see people, like, just being fed sugar, sugar, sugar when they're in a hospital environment or something, and it's like, "Okay, well, now take your insulin." And it's like, "Well, we could why don't we just not do both?"
Yeah, it's true. It's you, I get, I'm so passionate about this because it just bugs the hell right out of me. When you look at the healthcare industry, and it really wouldn't take much to fix things. Do you know what I mean? If everybody just completely changed their diets, then we wouldn't need pharmacare for any reason. But that's the problem, is that we've got big pharma in bed with the universities and the Flexner report and all of that other jazz underneath that. So basically for the healthcare industry, we've got pill pushers, really. It's kind of crappy to say, but I think really all you need a doctor for realistically is for gunshot wounds, stab wounds, casts, stuff like that. Um, you don't need a cardiologist if you know how to eat. You don't need a rheumatologist. You don't need a kidney specialist. You don't need a cancer oncologist, because, you know, if you have hyperinsulinemia, you're going to have everything else eventually. And that's just the way it is. Cancer's on the horizon for you. Kidney disease is on the horizon. High blood pressure and all the medications that go with it. Of course, you're going to be given a statin. God forbid that you're not, yeah. Don't get me started on that. That's a absolute BS, right? I mean, you have to have 129 people take it for that one person for its good. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Those statistics that they talk about, the 36%, if you're an actual statistician, you would know that's baloney. It only helps less than 1%, and that's after you've already had the first heart attack. But you can get rid of the chance of having that heart attack if you change your diet. It's not that hard. So, but I guess maybe I shouldn't say that, because I know better too, and yet I have a challenge with the sugar shit. You know we're yeah, it's about addiction, I guess, in a lot of ways, really. you know
Mm.
um
Yeah.
it's the drug of choice now.
Mm. Sadly, yeah. So, um, you're very passionate about this. So, um, is like, what changes have you seen in yourself? And actually, firstly, just going back to the timeline, what is the timeline where you kind of moved more from keto towards carnivore?
Hmm. I can't say for sure when, but it's just like a lot of meals are just basically carnivore. Like every breakfast is always carnivore breakfast for me, right? And usually every lunch is carnivore. Typically there might be a little bit of coleslaw or something like that, or a pickle with my cheeseburger. But I keep it really, like, it's pretty low carb. I don't count anything, and I can't say when for sure, but I guess ketovore is pretty accurate. But 99.9% of the food that I eat that goes in my mouth, calorie wise, is protein and fat. So, and I don't measure that either. I kind of figure I have 5 eggs for breakfast and 5 or 6 pieces of bacon. So I kind of feel I'm, good in that area with loads of bacon fat. I love bacon fat, so I cook it in that. So, I'm old school. I call that liquid gold. I got pounds of that stuff in the freezer. I just can't throw it out. I just can't. So, um, yeah, so it's been 5.5 years now altogether since I've been doing it. So, and it's a lifestyle. It's not ever going to be something that, like, I'm not interested in eating pasta. To me, it's just like all of these white foods are just fillers. You can't eat pasta without a sauce on it, right? You can't eat bread without, like, gobs of butter or whatever it is you like on it, right? Potatoes have to have loads of butter. Like everything that's a carb basically has to have something added to it because it's just a crappy filler food, really. So yeah, I guess I haven't been interested in that for a long time because deep down, when you know it's just garbage food, it's harder to put that into your mouth. It's easier to put like a Cadbury chocolate bar into your mouth. Let's be honest, just the pure chocolate sugar high thing or whatever is kind of where, that's kind of my jam when I talk about, the addiction to, sugar, whatever. But yeah. And, you know, I was listening to one of your interviews the other day, and you were talking about how you came to carnivore and how you have addictions as well. And I do too. That's, I'm seeing that more as a theme, I suppose. Now I've been, I've been sober for 8 years now. So congratulations to you as well on yours. That's a wonderful thing. And I'm grateful that I have been sober for this long because, that would be a hard thing to stop because of that. You really have to want to do that. That's a tough one. So my hat is off to you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. I mean, 8 years is a very good innings. That's awesome. So, I mean, given that 8 years sober, 5.5 years on ketovore, what do you feel has changed for you in that time?
I definitely have more mental clarity. Um, when the pain in my joints is gone, and I need my wrists and my hands because I draw blood. I'm a phlebotomist, so I'm poking people all day long. So it's repetitive movements. That's pretty important. I've had coworkers who have had to have surgeries on those fine little bones in your wrist and thumb, and nothing ever works very well again, and that's all inflammation. And that was the interesting thing too. um, when I first started this, I got all of my blood labs done just for shits and giggles because I wanted to take a look at everything and see where I was at. And in the meantime, as well, keep doing it every 3 months to see the improvements that I had made while doing this. And I was able to get my CRP, which is an inflammation marker, down to 0, which is unbelievable. So, and the more you lower your A1C, typically you're lowering your inflammation as well because it's throughout the body, and that's what arthritis is just inflammation of the small joints or whatever. And so I noticed all of that. All of my liver function tests improved. um, my cholesterol is high, but my triglycerides are low, which is exactly where you want them to be. Dr. Robert Lustig was an absolute gem for, I watched so many videos of him on YouTube, and I was able to get the ratio to figure out all of the stuff myself so I would know where I was at for the cholesterol. It is high, but it's supposed to be high. And the higher your cholesterol, the lower your all-cause mortality. So win-win. And you need your cholesterol to be high for your brain. And again, that was one of the reasons um, why I started looking at different things. I'm having neurological issues. You're wondering about why I kind of started this as well. I read that book, Still Alice, and you think about early onset dementia, and sometimes I forget things. And this is when I was starting menopause too. So, everything's connected. They say, oh, the menopause brain. But then I'm thinking, maybe what if it isn't? So you kind of worry about stuff like that as well. So um, sometimes you forget things. Sometimes you can't find the words. So that kind of worried me. Um, but, my mom has MS, and I think it's misdiagnosed, actually, to tell you the truth. I know what it is that she has. I have it too, but I don't have a name for it, but it's basically insulin resistance is the name of it, basically, right? But it's just an offshoot of it, where you do stumbly things. Maybe it's like Parkinson-like. So this is, kind of the reason why I started down this path as well. Um, Things like that. So. Um, like I lost 58 pounds. I guess I should mention that because that was actually huge. And,
Nice.
that worked like a hot damn, man. I got to tell you, like that shit works. So, if it's resistant, if people are having a really hard time with the weight, it really works, and it's really quite easy because, you know, if you're constantly hungry, you're never going to make it. You have to be able to be satisfied, and meat and protein is highly satiating, and this is why people are, you can eat like a huge breakfast and go all day basically until dinner time. I can do 2 meals a day, no problem, because when you're eating a big breakfast, you're not hungry, you're not looking for anything else during the day. So um yeah, so I don't have like, all of these different things that, people in my family have. I don't really know why I was so lucky and I dodged the bullet, but my sister has ulcerative colitis, or she's lost half of her bowel, and she's had eczema her whole life, and my mom had PCOS and hiatal hernia, and which, all these things instigated then a hysterectomy. And she says that, like the list just goes on and on and on. And then when you finally understand how everything works, you understand that it's all from the same thing. We all have hyperinsulinemia, and
Mm.
it's probably like 90% of us. This just really, if you're pre-diabetic, you're diabetic. You're almost there. You're just,
They've put a line in there to say, okay, well,
they
that's
did put a line
pre-diabetic.
there.
It's really meaningless, right?
Yeah, it is meaningless, absolutely. So
Mm.
yeah, you had Gary Fetke on the other day. I love that guy. I've been watching him for years and years, and there really is an agenda going on in the background there. We're not crazy. Things really are going on, and he's been bullied by different organizations. And it's interesting that they're so against meat. You know, when you I know my head is just so full of information when you look at Dr. Weston Price, and looking at the teeth, looking at what poor nutrition does to your teeth and how it just escalates from there.
Mm. So, the just on that, one of the interesting things that I've seen is I remember because I used to have gum disease. I remember reading an article that linked gum disease to dementia. And it's like everything is linked. It's all the same thing. You stop the sugar, the gum disease goes away. And then obviously, people are called dementia type 3 diabetes, so maybe you stop the sugar, then there's less risk of dementia and stuff like that. It's all linked together, right?
Well, it is all linked together, and you can't think that we wouldn't put into our vehicles the crap that we put into our bodies and think it would be okay. Your mechanic would give you crap, right? They give you hell. What the hell are you doing? You can't put sugar in your gas tank. Well, you can't put sugar in your body either when you realize that 1 teaspoon is all your body has in it at any given point in time, tells you how little we actually need. And this baloney about needing carbohydrates, it's not even necessary for life. It's it's just absolutely crazy, but it's true. You don't need vegetables. And I really love Dr. Chafee talking about plants are trying to kill you, but you know they're not trying to help you. I mean, they're just because they're just laying there in the ground or whatever you want to call it, and they don't, they can't, there's no teeth and claws involved. They have toxic chemical warfare, and they have thorns. And you know look at the percentage of plants that are on this planet that you can't eat. The percentage of it is so teeny tiny. What does that tell you about it? And like there's really interesting information from Sally Norton, Stephen Gundry, the plant paradox. And for some people, kale and spinach, it's not your friend. It's not a superfood. I'm sorry, but beef is the superfood. You know, and that's the interesting thing too. If you talk to people ask me, well, what do you eat, right? Do you eat a lot of chicken? Do you eat a lot of fish? Well, hell no. No, I don't. Because it doesn't last, if you know what I'm saying. It doesn't have that sticking power, for lack of a better word. I shouldn't use that word because it's not sticky, but it stays with you longer than anything else does. And, when we do have chicken, my husband laughs and says, keep eating, it's only chicken. And we kind of giggle, but it's true, because it's a difference between eating a ribeye and then you're good. But you can have 4, 5,
Mm,
6 pieces of chicken. It's like eating Chinese food. Really, that's
yeah.
kind of what it's all about. It just doesn't last you very long. So
Mm,
beef and lamb for me is number one, in satiety, for sure, absolutely. So that's, yeah.
yeah. So you said you're eating 2 meals a day. How does that work for you? What are the meals contain, and what's the time split?
Well, right now I'm doing 3 meals a day. I just finished doing I was doing traveling lab assistant. So I was going to out of province to another city and being there 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So having a kitchenette for me, um, being away for me, I just did breakfast and dinner every day, and that worked perfectly. So for me, it would be five scrambled eggs with, I don't know, half a cup of grated cheddar cheese, a huge whack of butter in the pan, and 5 or 6 pieces of bacon. And that would be it until dinner time, at which time I would just have a huge cheeseburger. So I would keep it simple. And sometimes it would be lamb because I brought a crock pot as well. And sometimes it would be a steak. So it's just meat. That's it. It's just meat for dinner. Pretty simple, you know.
Nice.
So
And it's good that even when you're traveling like that, you're able to keep it going.
well, that was part of the deal. There was no way that I was going to be able to do the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off kind of deal when he'd made that mistake. He thought I could just like live on McDonald's or something. And I'm like, dude, I haven't done that crap for years. I've been carnivore for quite a while now. So I have to I made arrangements to get a kitchenette or whatever right away. But yeah, you have to make the effort. I mean, because nothing else comes close to satisfying you, right? Pasta is not going to satisfy you. Nothing else is going to do. It doesn't matter where you are. It has to be meat. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
nice. So, if someone's watching this and they're thinking, well, it sounds really nice, and I want to, get healthier, but um, I just can't imagine eating only meat or only meat and eggs for the rest of my life. What advice would you give them?
Oh man, that's a good one. I guess it comes down to what is your health worth, really? You know, the people that I talk to at the hospital every day, some of them do want help and they're willing to do what it takes. I've talked to people with ulcerative colitis and talked to people who are trying to get pregnant. Um, Maybe start small. If I were to, like I said, I read that Atkins book in the early 90s and I wasn't ready to go. For me, it was fruit was a sticking point for me. I just thought, fruit was so healthy. And that was the other thing too, talking about what I used to eat all the time. I would have 6 or 7 pieces of fruit every day with yogurt, and I would wonder why it was so cold. Like, I'm not joking. I would touch the patients sometimes. I would do morning rounds and my hands were so cold. Like, I'd shock the crap right out of them. And I never could figure, yeah, the cold hands of death are here for you, darling. I'm here to take your blood. Wake up. And so I just could never figure it out. I'm like, I had all this food. Why am I so freaking cold? And then you start eating all meat and you're like, whoa, my hands are so warm. I'm so toasty all the time. I never thought that was a possibility in my life. I was always pulled. So that is pretty remarkable. So getting back to, you know, what I did first, I threw out all the sugar. I threw out everything that was in my pantry. That was the first thing that I did, because I know who I am. I'm an addict, really, let's be honest. And so, you know, and I have all these fabulous recipes for the best chocolate cake you've ever had in your life. And, you know, I can whip one up real quick here. I've got everything here. So um, that was the first thing that I did. I got rid of everything in my pantry. Um, because I was serious. I got rid of the pasta. I got rice, all the, you know, all of these different things that were in there. I got rid of them. Um, I haven't had sugar in my coffee forever, so that's never been a problem. But, you know, if you're drinking pop, start small. I don't know what to say, right? You got to start somewhere, though. Um, and thinking that fruit is, you got to get rid of some of your beliefs. I think that's really what it comes down to. You know, you keep thinking these things over and over again. You think they're true, but they're really not true. And so I would recommend that people start reading. You know, there are, you know, The Case Against Sugar is a wonderful book that will, you know, give you all the information that you need. And she's done all the research. You don't need to go any further than that, really. But, you know, Gary Tubbs, understand why keto works. I think that's really, really important. Um, Educate yourself. Know why you're doing it, right? Because if you don't have enough skin in the game, and people are going to shake your tree and, oh, you don't really want to do that. Oh, that's bad for you. I mean, I know I have a couple of vegans in my family. You know, my sister-in-law, and she thinks we're going to die like a friggin' heart attack. I send them pictures of 5 pounds of cooked bacon. I send it because I cook 5 pounds of bacon in one go every week, and that's where I start. And you know, and they're talking about heart disease, but talking about um, coronary artery scan. I had one of those done, and I had zero. So, you know, I'm eating fat like you can't believe. I call myself the butter queen, but you know, my heart, I'm going to die, but it's not going to be of a heart attack, and it's not going to be of cancer either. So I can guarantee you that it'll, you know, I don't know what it's going to be. Hopefully I'll just die in my sleep, an old lady, still healthy. But, you know, so I just start small, you know, have a reason. Maybe it's your grandkid. Maybe you want to be able to lift them up. Maybe you want to be able to tie your shoes. I don't friggin' know, but you got to have a reason. Maybe you're just, here's the thing, you're probably fat. Not trying to be mean, but you know, when I was growing up in I was born 62, everybody that I went to school with was skinny. You look at all the pictures back in the day, we're all skinny. We're not skinny anymore. You know, it's the rare ducky that's pretty lean, you know. So, you know, I just, you just don't feel good when you're fat. I know, I've been there, I've done that. So, you know, start small.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that just drives me crazy is that, you know, my health is my responsibility. I actually don't have a doctor. I haven't had a doctor for years, but I've always believed that my health is my responsibility, and it would behoove everyone else to do the same thing. You know, this
Mm.
healthcare system thing it's not going to last for much longer. It's crashing. I don't know if you ever watched Dr. As an aside, Asim Malhotra. He was talking about, he gave a fantastic speech about how the healthcare industry is going to be crashing.
Mm.
It's like watching a slow moving disaster in force. And it's actually true. And you can see that when every single person that's coming into the lab for blood work at every, that's one of the things my boss was giving me heck about one time. She said, oh yeah, I was telling one of the client or patients or whatever about carnivore and keto and stuff. And she goes, yeah, Dawn thinks that that will cure everything. And I'm like, but it does. But nobody believes you, right? Nobody believes you because you're just the dumb lab assistant. What the heck do you know? But you know, you're able to look after the things in your body that, you know, you can do. You Anybody can do, but you have to take responsibility for it. You know, it's an inside job.
Yeah. Very well said. And the thing is, it can seem like a lot of responsibility to be saying, I'm taking control of my own health. but it's once you do, it's very, very empowering.
And that's the surprising thing too, is I fixed the body thing that was bothering me for a long time, because I got to the weight that I was at because of drinking, and I just drank myself there. And so you're left with the aftermath of that. And it was pretty disheartening, let's be honest. But it's giving me back a curiosity, talking about what carnivore and keto and losing weight and having interest in things again, because, you know, I was an atheist for a very long time as an aside because I was a Mormon. That's a really long story. But when you throw everything out, you throw the baby out with the bathwater pretty much when you leave religion. And so the really interesting thing was this just kept me on. I'm still on the path of learning. And now I'm ever more into science and quantum physics. And that stuff is just so fascinating to me. So it has brought me into a place of meditation and much more calmness and peace in my life. And it's actually like I never thought that would happen, because when you think about like Zen, like Zen, blah, blah, you think about vegans, maybe, that's kind of where you go, right? Oh, we don't want to harm the animals or whatever. But when you're more clear focused and stuff, you can actually meditate way better. So that's more of a these are more of the things that have come into my life now that never used to be there, that carnivore brought to me, because it was like, I'm happy with my body now. Let me go into my mind and maybe start looking at some of these things too. And so that to me was the other exciting thing that happened, was you just don't know what you're going to get when you open that path. Anyways, that's the exciting thing to me, is way more knowledge than ever before. And I just can't stop, it seems. Yeah.
So, Dawn, do you have any social media if people want to reach out to you?
No, I, I got off Facebook a few years ago, and I just can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. So no, I kind of devote my time to watching YouTube videos. I don't have a channel. I just, I watch mostly. I watch stuff that you do. I loved Ken Berry, Dr. Berry. I love Anthony Chafee. So I watch a lot of that. And, some people say, well, you know, I guess I had to go on an offshoot because people were saying that my keto/carnivore was like way too much like a religion. And I was like always on the soapbox kind of thing. So that was kind of me moving off into another area. What else can I move into? Because it kind of was maybe getting a little out of hand with the yeah, telling people all the time, maybe they don't want to know, shut your mouth. But anyway, so
No
anyway.
worries. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And if they ever did want to talk to me, it's just my name at yahoo.com.